Welcome into another edition of the Old North State Sports Show, folks. Today we are back to do something that we have not done to this point, and that is to break down the top 30 visits, pro days, and local visits for the Carolina Panthers. Now, I will be honest, it is difficult to keep tabs of these things, so I'm using data that I got from the Athlon, as well as data that I got directly from Panthers Wire. There's a lot of good resources available for you, but it is hard to compile because it's not information that has to be shared, at least publicly. So you just hear of who's coming in, reported by XYZ on X. So people report through X. I don't know how they get the data. I guess they've got contacts and people know. I mean, I know people close to the team know how to get the data, but we're going to break it down. And I think it's always a good thing to do as we get towards the draft to look at the guys they're talking to, primarily those top 30 visits, the ones that we do gather information about, because it does lend its hand into guys that the Panthers are likely going to draft. Now, pro days, combine meetings, Shrine Bowl, whatever these bowl game meetings, like maybe not so much into those because, you know, those are generic. You're going to meet with guys as you go to the pro days, as you go to the combine. I really focus in on top 30 visits and either the position that the Panthers are considering or the specific players. So without further ado, we're going to get into it. We're going to look at offense, then defense. Defense, much heavier than what we've seen on the offensive side of the ball. But let's get right into it. Maybe surprising some folks is the fact that running backs are in the mix right now. So Ollie Gordon out of Oklahoma State had a top 30 visit. Jarquez Hunter out of Auburn also had a top 30 visit. So even though they have Rico Dowdle, even though they brought back Blackshear as a returner and they have Chuba Hubbard under contract for a few years, and Jonathan Brooks on the mend, Panthers still considering all options at running back. Now, hopefully this time around, if they do go with the running back, they're going to be selecting one much later than we would anticipate. But I do think it's a smart decision because Dowdle's here for 1 year. We don't know how Brooks is going to recover, and you never know. I mean, Chuba Hubbard hopefully stays healthy, and we continue to see an ascension and more progression, but you do know once they make a turn, get a little bit older, it's never a bad thing to have a good set of running backs behind him. Wide receiver, maybe this will make folks happy, Tet McMillan, and I know there's a lot of Tet McMillan slander going around based off of a clip from years ago where he talked about not watching film. I think it's blown out of proportion. I think you just see these things floating around every year. There's not a lot of context. Someone found it. Someone is going to have engagement farming and drive you to it to watch and listen. But you know what? I'm not going to get too worried about that. I mean, Panthers have a decision to make. Some folks are trending down on Tet McMillan, but I think still pretty good option for the Panthers if they choose to take him. Like, I would not be disappointed. Jalen Nolan out of Iowa State, another name that's popped up. And again, these are all your top 30 visits. So 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end. This was at his pro day, Carter Runyon. Say that right? I don't know. I'm sorry. Met him at his pro day, so I'm not reading too much into that. We do know the Panthers need another tight end. Are they going to get that early? You can make a case for Tyler Warren. You can make a case for a few of these guys on the list. They may wait a little bit later to get that. And then lastly, offensive line. So they did have 1 top 30 visit with Arionate Ursary out of Minnesota. I'm sorry if I don't pronounce that correctly either, but I think it sheds light on the Panthers' need at the tackle position. They're going to need a tackle next year should they move on from Taylor Moton. I think they feel good about Ike Ekwonu. They're working on stuff there for the 5th year, possibly an extension, so not too concerned with that. They also met with Ozzie Trapilo out of Boston College and Drew Kendall, both out of BC at the pro days there, and Devontae Gordon out of Wake Forest, a local visit at his pro day. So a lot of the local kids, too, you get a little bit of an edge because you can bring in local guys that don't count towards your top 30. And we likely will never know the full list of 30. Good luck to you if you are trying to track that at home. Like, that's on you. You're doing a good job. Defense. No surprises here. Lots of focus on the defensive line as well as at the edge position. So TJ Saunders out of South Carolina, met with him at his pro day. Makes sense. Deion Walker out of Kentucky, defensive line, brought in for a top 30 visit. JJ Pagoose, hope I say that right, met with him at his pro day. They brought in Cam Jackson out of Florida as a top 30 visit. Tonka Hemingway out of South Carolina, met with him at his pro day. Again, meeting with a lot of these Gamecocks because they're local. That's what has been reported up to this point. Warren Brinson out of Georgia, brought in for a top 30 visit. DeAndre Jules out of South Carolina, Alex Huntley out of South Carolina, and Kevin Pointer, who's local as well. So quite a few guys, defensive front. And you know what? When you're in your own backyard, look for the guys that you can meet with. Really, I mean, Gamecocks had a fantastic defensive front last year in the college game. The edge, outside linebacker position, no question here. Jalen Walker at the top of the list, potential number 8 overall pick out of Georgia. Again, pro day and local. Now, we didn't travel. There were some things going on with Walker as far as Dan Morgan not going out to the pro day, but Jalen Walker, Michael Williams, both of those guys. I did get to meet with them. Princely Umanilin, hope I say that right too. Good edge prospect out of Ole Miss. If we're talking about double dipping in edge in the second round, possibly third round, met with him at his pro day. Kyle Kennard, you guys know I like him out of South Carolina. He's another double dip potential guy in the second or third round. Olumefe Oladejo out of UCLA. I hope I said that one right too. Top 30 visit. Fadil Diggs out of Syracuse. Saw him at his pro day. Clay Robinson out of Alabama at his pro day. And Ashton Gillette, kind of looks like Gillette, out of Louisville, was brought in for a top 30. So clearly needs on the defensive front. Want to keep beefing that up, even though we have what we have and brought what we brought in. Same thing at the edge position. Now moving out from that, linebacker, strictly linebacking core. Of course, we know the guys from South Carolina, Demetrius Knight, Bam Martin Scott, and Debo Williams, all pro days. Shamar James out of Florida was brought in for a top 30 visit. Your cornerbacks, only one so far reported. Quincy Riley out of Louisville had a top 30. And your safeties, Nick Imanwari, who's tested very well, pro day and a local visit, and Jonas Sanker actually was brought in as a top 30 visit out of UVA. Odds, I mean, the purpose of bringing so many guys in is getting to know the fit of the person and the player and your scheme, putting them through some more tests if you have questions. And I'm not just like a test, academic test, but if you need to pass them through physicals or check out whatever's going on with them, you're able to do that. But it's no surprise to me that the focus continues to be defense. I think it'll be a heavily focused defensive draft. Panthers have a lot of flexibility. Could sprinkle in a wide receiver, a back, a tight end, offensive lineman into the mix. But if I were to bet, I would lean towards more defensive players selected than offensive players, and more defensive players selected earlier than later. But I guess we'll get into it and find out. As always, folks, this is Carolina Dad. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Y'all have a good one.